Okay, so like 3 days ago? No, like a week ago, I made a video talking about what bugged me so much about Studio Trigger and why I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But then I did put my finger on it, and that's why I was making the video. So now here we are back again in the car, and I just got finished watching the newest Gridman episode, the one which has come under massive scrutiny through Twitter and AnyTube this week, over the Gridman finish cut, bearing a striking resemblance to a lot of Obari's cuts from his older mech shows. I don't know which one exactly, I'm not that educated enough, and the source of the clip comparison that I saw, I don't remember what it said in terms of, I'll have it up on the screen. Anyway, thing is, I've got it. I've figured it out. I have cracked the code on Trigger's issues here. Like, the overlying issues. Like, not plagiarism, not like potential, overstepping your bounds of homage. It's the fact that it's the homage that's the problem. Studio Trigger, in its entirety, basically, is just an homage factory. And that's a problem, because while the respect that they are paying to the greats is fantastic and needs to be done more in anime, it's too much. It's gone too far. We have reached a point where it's just become ludicrous. So let me take you through a timeline here. So let's start all the way back in like fucking, I don't know, like 1979. Let's start with Gundam, with Mobile Suit Gundam, one of the most iconic anime franchises of all time. Mobile Suit Gundam. It's like the mecha show. Like, Macross, like, those are the two mecha shows that people point to and are like, this is anime in the 1980s. And like, okay, yeah, cool, that's true. The cool thing about Gundam was that it was doing something that nobody else had done before. It was taking these robots and thrusting them into a wartime setting that could be consumed by both adults and children. It's a lot like SpongeBob in that way, that it's both consumed by adults and it's consumed by children, loved and enjoyed by both. That's why it was so awesome and so ubiquitous throughout the 80s, and it's why everyone tried to copy it. And it's why a lot of people succeeded with copying it, with, I think, if this is matching up temporally, the original Gridman kind of being a spin-off of that, because the original Gridman's tokusatsu, I think, or at least a lot of the stuff that it's based off of is tokusatsu. I'm not educated in that area. But anyway, then you get to Eva in 1995. It's like the next big anime, like, analysis breaking point there. You've got Gundam, you've got all the stuff that's pre-Gundam. You've got, like, Tezuka, all of his nonsense that's pre-Gundam. And I'm talking non-cinematic, so we're not gonna mess with, I hate him, Hayao Miyazaki. We're not going to mess with Hayao Miyazaki here. So we get all the stuff that's pre-Gundam, pre-1979. Then you got Gundam in 79. And then from 79 to 95, you have all of this Gundam stuff. You have the Gundam ripoffs, you have the Gundam clones, you have those who apparently, who in their opinion do it better. All that kind of thing. Then you get 95. 95 is Evangelion. Evangelion is like the seminal, like, let's rip apart Gundam and the mecha genre and look at all the gooey innards and see what we can create out of that. And what they create is a critically acclaimed masterpiece that is being picked up by Netflix in 2019, which rules. The thing about Eva is that while Anno did painstaking work to pay homage to Gundam, it is its own distinct original thing with its own thoughts, ideals, philosophies. You name it, Eva has uniqueness in it. Its characters are incredibly distinct and unique from their formulaic origins. And it is because of that, it is because of how Eva starts inside that formula that it is able to further expand upon it later in the series. Eva seems pretty formulaic outside of a few stylistic elements until like episode 8. Like whenever Asuka and Shinji get trapped inside the volcano, that things kind of start to go off the rails, and then shit really hits the fan whenever Shinji gets swallowed up by the black and white thing. It's been a while since I've rewatched the series. Anyway, that's whenever Eva starts to get real. Now, the problem here is that Gridman, I'm gonna go back to my timeline a second. Gridman hasn't had that gotten real moment yet. And I realize we're 8 episodes in out of 13, and it still has time. But this, I feel like, it's gotta happen soon. Anyway, going back to my timeline. 1995 to 2007, that's your next big era. That's when all the art house shit's coming out. That's when all the experimental shit's coming out. Whenever you've got these directors who are employed by these production studios who are like, you know what, the economic bubble just burst. Ava was massively successful. I want you to go out and execute your artistic vision to try and create me another Neon Genesis Evangelion. Because Ava is such a worldwide success, and it is one that has continued to this day 23 years later. I mean, Ava was the #1 trending thing worldwide on Twitter last night, and it's 23 years old. So all these production studios said to these guys, okay, you're really cool artistically. I see you had some work on Evangelion. Cool. Awesome. Make me an Evangelion clone, but make it distinct. That's where you get guys like Shoji Kawamori? Am I remembering his name wrong? God, I hope not, because I've been talking about him all week on Twitter. Yes, so you got him with like Escaflowne and Arjuna, which are 2 shows of his that I'm really enjoying right now. You've got people like Shinichiro Watanabe, you've got the animators like Yutaka Nakamura, and like, you know, all of those guys coming out. Yoko Kanno on the soundtrack, like just going absolutely ham. What's his name? Hiroyuki Imaishi also gets his start, as part of the Evangelion Gainax staff, obviously. You've got all these guys just going absolutely ham in the mid-2000s. And then you hit 2007, which is kind of what I think the era is sort of now-ish. Like, you go 2017, and I think there's another kind of sort of break with Sword Art Online, because Sword Art Online, everyone's just like, you know what, let's just do light novels now. And then light novels happened, because Sword Art Online was just so popular and continues to be. All of this is what I'm trying to say, is that anime is a medium that builds off of each other. Anime is a medium that, much like Japanese art throughout its history, has continued to draw a lot of homage and influence from its past selves. This is important, because that's Trigger's whole shtick. Everyone knows Studio Trigger as the trigger that formed from the remnants of Studio Gainax, and everyone knows Studio Gainax as, like, the best anime studio ever until, like, it dissolved and broke apart into Kara and Trigger. And even now, Kara's putting out the Evangelion Rebuild movies, which, in my opinion, are really good. So, what do we do from here? Trigger's been around for, like, I don't know, 9 years? It's 2009, whenever they made their first thing, the Inferno Cop or whatever, I don't know. It's been a while. They've been around for a while. They've done a lot of stuff, you know? We've got the Kill la Kill, we've got Little Witch Academia. I made that mistake in my last video. Little Witch Academia, all this stuff that they've come out with that's been Kisniver's another one that's original. They've created a lot of this stuff that just doesn't seem to be able to break out of this rut. Everything is a reference, a callback, an homage. That's great, but where's your own identity? Where is your own thing? Gurren Lagann, even though it's produced by Gainax and it's Imaishi directing, still, I mean, that's the most unique thing that Imaishi or anybody who's now a part of Studio Trigger has been a part of since the split. That's the most unique thing, because it followed its own identity. I mean, Gurren Lagann is all about following your own identity, and it's crazy. Like, you know, row, fight the power, be your own person, do your own thing. Make sure that what you're doing is right for yourself and for the people around you. You know, love yourself. That's a huge core message of Gurren Lagann. And it just seems like after that, the message is just completely lost on any ex-Gainax people who aren't working for Kara. And by that I mean everyone who's now working at Trigger. Because Kill la Kill, you can point to so many, like, visual similarities to older Gainax stuff, you know, references to other fighting or to other shonen anime, or, you know, not shonen anime necessarily saying that Kill la Kill is one, but like in that, you know what I'm saying. Anybody who's watching this video knows what I'm saying. With Little Witch Academia, I will give credit for being original, but I mean, even then, people are like, oh, it's just anime Harry Potter, because there's such a core borrowing of the concept there that people are unable to separate it from its Western counterpart that's, you know, ubiquitous. stuff, and now Gridman. Now we get to Gridman. That's just like, oh my gosh, like this entire animation controversy. Like, I'm Amamiya. Amamiya is his name. I think Amamiya is his name. So Amamiya, the director. He's either the director or somebody really high up in the production staff of Gridman. I'm gonna look it up and put it like right here, wherever the camera will allow me, in this video, to show how much of a dumbass I am. Amamiya goes and copies this cut from Obara, who's a big Gundam guy and who's basically been ubiquitous throughout mecha anime since the beginning of his career. So we come in and copy this cut, and everyone loses their minds. Not because it's an homage, but because I think we've reached the breaking point with Trigger. We have reached the point at which they are no longer they no longer have been able to establish, they no longer have the chance, that's what I'm trying to say, they no longer have the chance to establish themselves as a unique studio making their own creative original projects, despite the fact that some of the stuff they do is legitimately original. I mean, bringing in Mario Kata to do a romance sort of touchy-feely thing with Kisniver, even though I'm not a particularly big fan of Mario Kata, I appreciate the move. I appreciate the hustle. It was a good idea. It was a good concept. The execution was lacking, but I can appreciate a concept. With Gridman, not only are they bringing back an old series from the 90s, again, but they continuously, I mean, every episode, man, I mean, it has reached a point to me, and I think a lot of people subliminally in the anime community don't want to admit this, has become a point where Gridman is just living so much off of the strength of its predecessors that it fails to create an identity of its own. Like, I'm trying to think of why I watch Gridman. There's a lot of cool action in it. The girls are really cute, and it looks nice. That's about it, you know? You can say that, though, about Sword Art Online. I mean, those are the same good points that people give to Sword Art Online. I'm a fan of Sword Art Online. A lot of people aren't. I'm using it as a kind of as a scapegoat, strawman. I don't know, but like people, Sword Art Online is like universally hated throughout Twitter, and those are the same good things that you can say about Sword Art Online that you can say about Gridman. And there's not much else, There's not much else to either series if you ask somebody who's not me. Gridman kind of just, it loses you if you're not really into those three things. Or if you're not a huge animation nerd, where you can go and you can look and be like, oh, hey, that's the same cut from there. But like at some point, if I want to watch that cut, why don't I just go watch the original? Like, it's still gonna look cool. Like, if I wanted to watch the original, Beam, Guild, or Gridman finish attack really badly, and I wanted to be like an animation otaku and gush out over it and everything, and like retweet it 1,000,000 times on Sakugaboru, like, that's what I can do. I can just look up the GIF on Sakugaboru and watch it. I don't have to watch Gridman. Gridman is running, I think, to the anime community, it is running out of reasons. This is also Trigger. Trigger and Gridman are running out of reasons to make you watch their shit without calling back to other stuff. They are not confident enough in their own ability to create something unique and original, despite having done so with flying colors in the past, and are just so reliant on what's been done in the past that they are unable to create something new for themselves and for their future. And that, I think, is just the real underlying core issue with all this. We're all up in arms. Is it plagiarism? Is it not plagiarism? If it is plagiarism, is it okay because it's an animation cut? No, yes, we don't know. It doesn't matter. Because whether or not it is, this is Trigger's identity now. Studio Trigger is the studio that does homages, that does callbacks, that revives retro stuff. Well, you know what? Let's try reviving some retro stuff and actually injecting new life into it. A great series that does this, that literally nobody talks about anymore, and it really makes me angry because I discovered it late, is Gatchaman. Gatchaman Crowds specifically. So Gatchaman Crowds brings back this old retro series from like the 80s that like nobody knows about anymore, nobody cares about Gatchaman anymore, but puts a completely modern new spin on it that is Trigger-esque, that is Gainax-esque, but people don't give it the time of day because it doesn't contain enough references to the original. And, people are, I don't know why it's not enjoyed as much as other Trigger, Gainax, callback nonsense is. It baffles my mind, or boggles my mind. So, the next time you're sitting down to watch Gridman, as I have just finished doing about 20 minutes ago, however long I've been narrating this. Think to yourself, why am I watching this show outside of that trigger magic? Does that trigger magic exist anymore? If it does, I'd love to hear why. If it doesn't, then perhaps you should be looking for another show to watch this season. Perhaps a show based off of Ricky Kawahara's critically acclaimed 2012 light novel series, Sword Art Online.